everyone, Elodie here, and welcome to a new episode of the Pint of Science podcast. Today is a new episode, PhD student in marine conservation biology, right?
Yes, at King's College London in the Department of Geography.
Perfect. And we also have Stephen Fay, a health humanity researcher. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Elodie. Thanks so much for having us on to chat.
Yeah, thank you for accepting to do this podcast. And you're in Surrey, right?
That's right. Yeah, health humanities researcher, a lecturer in Spanish as well, and a fellow of the Institute of People-Centered AI, all of those at the University of Surrey.
Well, while you're still talking, Stephen, can you actually explain a bit what you're working on?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm the PI on a storytelling-based creative expression project for people with dementia.
Yeah.
And we started in Colombia, the first phase of this project.
The country, right?
Exactly.
Not the university. Mm-hmm.
No, in the country, in the city of Medellin, that was famous for all the wrong reasons, but now is a very beautiful city there in the middle of Colombia. And like I'm saying, this is a creative expression project. So we ran weekly storytelling workshops, and we were exploring if it could have an impact on the quality of life and psychological well-being of our participants, who are all people with dementia.
Wow, amazing. And you said you're a PI, so it's principal investigator.
That's right. Yeah, I lead on that project. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And you, Constance, what are you working on?
So I'm finishing my PhD. I'm due to submit in the next couple of months now. And I study marine protected areas as a biological conservation tool. So marine protected areas are exactly what they sound like. They are areas that have been designated for the conservation of the marine environment, so species and habitats. And so I look at how effective they are in the Irish Sea as a case study, but also there's a natural science side of it. So looking at, fish stocks and species and habitats, but there's also a human dimension as well. So I also consider governance and equity of local stakeholders in that holistic view of marine conservation. So I do a bit of both, interdisciplinary, definitely.
And actually, I have a question for both of you before we dig in the Pint of Science experience. But what was your talk about last year during Pint of Science, so in 2022? So, Constance, what was it about?
So mine was called, Is it the real science? Is it just fantasy? And it was an overview of marine protected areas in the UK and Ireland.
Okay. And you, Stephen?
Well, mine was, if I remember rightly, it was called Creativity During COVID-19, because our project, we had this wonderful project all designed and ready to go, and we started in February 2020. And as you can imagine, lockdown came along, so we had to make a full transition to online delivery, which we were terribly nervous about, because this is not really a project or a participant group that you necessarily think of as having the kind of digital literacy levels to go online, but it worked really, really well. We were able to transform a little project into a really long kind of creativity and communications lifeline. So basically, all I did was present what our participants had told us. So I was only a mouthpiece for our participants, who did all the hard work in that presentation.
Amazing. So now we're going to dig in your involvement in Pint of Science. So the first question is, how did you get involved? So what happened? Did the team contacted you? Did you contacted the team?
Yeah, I don't remember. And I actually was talking to my Pint of Science colleagues who are running this year's event and ran last year's event. Because I was an event manager as well as a speaker. And when I was compiling the list of speakers to do a talk on marine biology within the Our Planet theme, because it's a geography department. I don't know how and I don't know who. It could have been one of my colleagues who said, well, if you can't get all the speakers, why don't you do it? So I was put in as a placeholder in case I couldn't get all the speakers that we needed, because the people working on marine environment within the geography department at King's is very, very small. So I was just kind of put forward either by myself or by somebody else, and none of us can just remember how that happened. But so I ended up having to even though I was kind of organizing that event, I stepped down as co-host and let my friend Andrew take over as host, and so I was able to be a speaker.
Amazing. And you, Stephen, how did it happen?
I was definitely much more passive than Constance. I was simply sat there, and the university comms team reached out to all of us, and they did it in a really good way. It was effective call, because they I think quite rightly so, they stressed that it was a wonderful platform to speak to a local audience, to the local public. They gave testimonies from previous presenters, and even they kind of made it clear that it was science, but it was also pint, and that we were just going to let our hair down, and there need not be any nerves involved. So it was all really encouraging.
Yeah, the idea is really to relax and also talk to the public in a very different way that you would do during a conference. And also, maybe we can talk about that later, but often you have different questions that you would have during a conference. So, Stefan, you didn't heard about Pint of Science before that email?
I'd heard, I'd never taken part before. I had heard about it. My partner is a neuroscientist, so she's a bit more plugged in as a health humanities scholar. In previous institutions, Pint of Science calls just didn't reach humanities sections, which I think is a shame. And I think it's great that this time, certainly in the University of Surrey, it did. Yeah. So I'd heard about, but not taken part.
Okay. And you, Constance, so how did you end up organizing it? Because you're organizer and speaker at the same time. We have another episode where the organizer was an attendee before, and then she became an organizer. It's funny how people are, going from one role to another.
So I've heard of Pint of Science just by being, a student over the years. And I was a student representative, and so we were organizing events for the department, and it was kind of the same people always who were part of that event team, and that's when my colleague Brandon, who was he was head of like the events committee, he took over Pint of Science and was like, do you want to do this too? And all of a sudden we were all in this group chat on WhatsApp, saying, hey, we're going to plan Pint of Science. And I was like, this sounds great. And yeah, I enjoy event planning and I enjoy science. And I thought, why not?
Why not both? So what is the reason you participated? So Constance, you kind of told us already that, it was to make sure you would have someone talking about marine conservation biology. But Stefan, why did you participate?
I think this time around, I'd only just arrived at the University of Surrey in February 2022. So it seemed like a fantastic platform to reach out to the local audiences, local population, but also I knew that colleagues from the university would go along too. So it was a more relaxed way to present myself to them as well. And also, I mean, in the work that I do, working with people with dementia, the interventions that we design and deliver are very much focused on trying to have an impact on the participants' quality of life. But all of our work really tries to make a contribution to fighting some of those stigmas around dementia. The idea, all these stereotypes about deficit, decline, even disappearance of people with dementia. If I could, like I said, just give them, the participants, a platform and show the audience that the people that we worked with are more expressive, more resilient, more mindful than certainly I will ever be, then it could be a powerful way to fight those stigmas.
And you're talking again this year, right?
I'm going to be, this year, I'm going to only be the MC at one event.
Oh,
which I think is the best of both worlds, because I get the pint, I get to listen to the science, but I don't have to do that much work. Yeah.
That good. And Constance, are you involved this year again?
No. The dates don't work out. I'm actually going to be in Scotland at the time, so unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate. But I will plug at the end our event for this year. So if anybody's in London wants to come by, and we'll be taking away from your event, Stephen, because we're not geographically in the same area. So
perfect. So how was your experience? How was your talk? Were you nervous? Were you, what happened? Do you have any anecdotes about the night? Yeah, Constance, go for it.
Well, I'd never done science communications for general audiences or non-specialist audiences before Pint of Science. So I've done conferences like most PhDs have, and when you talk to your colleagues, even within the geography department, there are human geographers and physical geographers, but we're all kind of academics. So even if not everyone's sure 100% what you're talking about, they can kind of figure it out. Whereas like speaking to public who have absolutely no idea what you're talking about was a brand new experience. And that's why I was actually really excited, but extremely nervous to do it. And so I had prepared all my slides and I'd gone through my presentation, and then I went over it with one of my colleagues who is a human geographer, and with my partner who works in sport. And so, you know, non natural scientists. And they were like, get rid of these graphs, this data. It's too much. It's, you know, you're drowning.
Jargon.
Yeah, too much jargon. And I thought that was really helpful, because to me, I was like, I've really simplified this, but I didn't. It was, you know, and so it was a really good learning experience, because then I'm also a GTA, and I teach through the Brilliant Club as well. So it's helped me learn how to speak to people who aren't necessarily clued into what you are actually talking about. So I found that really helpful, but I was very nervous. And
did you enjoy it? You were nervous, but did you enjoy it on the night, or
I did, but I think, as most people do when they're nervous, I spoke a little bit too fast. And I naturally speak fast. I know that. And so I think I might have gone a little bit too fast, but I got some good feedback at the end. So
did you get any surprising questions?
Not that I recall. I think a lot of them had to do with, you know, the UK 30 by 30, which is 30% protected areas by 2030. We had, I just co-authored a report on that. So there are a couple questions about that, where the UK government is moving in terms of, you know, actually protecting the marine and terrestrial environment versus what they say they're doing. And so there was a lot about that. But most of the questions, unfortunately, were coming from, unfortunately, great for me, but like probably unfortunately for the audience, were coming from people who might have already worked in the area. So yeah, that's too bad. But afterwards, it was nice to have a pint and actually have people come up and chat. Because I think sometimes anyone, even myself, you think your question is stupid, and so you don't want to ask it in front of a room full of people. So afterwards, I think that's the great part of Pint of Science, is you are having a pint, you're just hanging out, and you can actually have a smaller conversation.
And what about you, Stefan? Were you used to do that kind of things? Were you nervous? What was your experience?
Not used at all, no. Presented on the research loads and loads of times, but never in this kind of forum. Definitely nervous. I was also the MC for the event that I was presenting at, and that gave me something else to think about, maybe worry about. My own presentation became a bit secondary because I was worried about the timing and doing everyone justice. I thought also, at least in the Guildford events, I found it really comforting, reassuring, just the total freedom that we had to express ourselves, present our work in the way that we wanted. Time was the only constraint. So that was the only, additional worry that we had. And the audience, I think, to be honest, my research, my topic, it's an easy one to engage the public with, because people know about dementia, people are thinking about dementia, people are worried about dementia. So people were definitely plugged in, and the response was absolutely fantastic. They furrowed their brows when I wanted them to. They chuckled when I wanted them to. And also, I mean, indirectly, and I do have that idea of combating the stigma surrounding dementia at the back of my mind. But I certainly wasn't thinking about that when I put the presentation together. But it was fantastic. I mean, I could see the people understood that our project had given our participants just an opportunity to express themselves without worrying about memory, without worrying about orientation. It was just pure creativity. And that produced really powerful stories. And I think the audience got that, and even in a way felt reassured about some of their own nerves about dementia. Maybe would just have the edge taken off them as well.
Yeah. And did you get any special questions you didn't expect?
I think I could just see on people's faces. Maybe they read the title, dementia and creativity. Yeah. I could just see on people's faces that they were really surprised at the really resilient and powerful creative abilities of our participants. I don't think they were expecting basically we got 8 people in different groups. We put 8 people together on a weekly basis, and they made a story, which is not something I don't think I could do. And these people, obviously, as the project developed, they began to create real works of art together. And I think that, I could see in people's faces that they were pretty amazed by that. And so they should be.
Yeah, and it's funny. Everyone, I think the speakers, we often hear that they are nervous because I think the thing is, a lot of speakers think, we might have to be careful with the noise. We're in a pub, so people might not be very aware of what we're doing, or like very, silent or listening to what we say. And then the first second where you have the speaker that starts talking, it's very silent and everyone is listening. And it's amazing because often this is why it's striking people, because they think, oh, okay, I thought, people would be a bit like discussing, drinking a drink and discussing with friends and maybe not paying attention as much. And we have attendees that really pay attention because they really want to listen to you. And it's amazing because then it's just like, you have the speaker starting to talk and it's just the magic there where the room goes quiet. And it's amazing because it's a really great public for you. So for both of you, it was the first time you were talking to that kind of audience. Looking back, so it's only a year, but what did it bring to you? Did it help with like wanting to do more of that? Did it help doing more science communication? I see you nodding, Constance. So yeah.
Yeah. So since I've done Pint of Science, I've actually gotten more involved in like science communications in general. So I've done a couple of podcasts, different podcasts and episodes and interviews, and I've written for some little like local magazines, just about what I'm up to and about marine conservation in general.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have thought that was something possible. And, if I hadn't done Pint of Science first, and thinking also, there are people out there who actually care, who are interested in what I'm doing, because most, academia can be a very, very isolating, outside of academia. Your PhD thesis or your work tends to be, usually is very niche, and, and you interact with people who are in your field, like in the marine science field. It's like a 6 degrees kind of thing. Kind of everyone knows each other or knows somebody who knows somebody. And so it was nice to be able to talk about what we're doing with other people who have, probably had no idea that this was a thing that you could even research. And during our Pint of Science event, so ours was sold out, which was absolutely brilliant. But there were people of all ages, and there were some undergrads, but there were even, I don't think they're children, because I don't believe children were allowed because of the atmosphere, but young people who probably never thought about marine conservation as a career path. Like, oh wow, I can actually do something like this. This is cool. And also telling them, just if you don't like maths and you're not very good at like physics or biology or whatever, there are other avenues within that, within that field where you can go into marine social sciences, or you can go into journalism, or, there's all these different sub disciplines that, that are involved with protecting the marine environment. And I think getting that out as well is really important.
I think it's what's great with Pint of Science is that people are actually meeting scientists. That is not something that they do very often, and they can ask questions about. Often we see people asking questions about, your path, your backgrounds. How did you, in Paris we have that every year. How did you decide to do research on that subject, for example? Very like questions about the person and the human researcher behind the science. And I think it's pretty good because it's about the science, but it's about the people as well. So it's very nice to be able to connect between the public and the researchers, not just for the science, but for the whole experience of it. And you, Stefan, so it was your first time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What happened since?
I mean, definitely, I think the relaxed, almost like an ethos of Pint of Science, I think is something that's translatable to other academic events. I think it can only make our presentations of our work to whoever we're presenting to more engaging, more articulate, more fluid, and help people to interact with us. So I've definitely tried to hold on. I was just yesterday, actually, the University of Surrey has just launched a new Centre of Excellence on aging, and it's quite a prestigious thing. We're doing it in conjunction with the UN, the Global Initiative on Aging of the UN. So yesterday there was a presentation and lots of ambassadors and lots of UN people there. But I tried to hold on to some of that, just human engagement aspect that Pint of Science really brought home. And I think it worked. I mean, I was saying, I'm lucky because the stuff, my participants, who I just talk on their behalf, are charming in their own right. So it's easy, yeah. But I've been able to put it in practice, more public engagement in the Bright Club. I don't know if you heard, this is a stand-up comedy event. That was nerve-wracking as well. But again, the Pint of Science gave me really good preparation for that kind of thing. And also, I mean, Pint of Science, it was wonderful for me as a health humanitist, a humanities scholar, a medical humanities scholar. It was really nice to be able to contribute a kind of a humanities perspective to the Pint of Science portfolio, because which is important for us. I mean, discourse, certainly in the UK, recently the humanities get such a bad rap. Even people who should know better in the government are calling humanities a waste of time and all this kind of stuff. So to be able to talk to a local audience and just show them the power of humanities for the people, it was a wonderful opportunity, and they definitely got it.
Amazing. So yeah, I think the thing about Pint of Science, so we like to usually say it's not the alcohol, it's more like the relaxed atmosphere, because whatever people drink, even if it's a glass of water, just being in a pub or being in a place that doesn't feel, like a conference where there are so many other people, where you feel more cozy and at home in a pub, and this is really the idea. And it's nice to see some other places, some other conferences thinking about other ways than just big rooms and big conferences, having smaller conferences in venues that are a bit more cozy as well than like huge rooms filled with like 400 people. And I think it's really nice, and trying that, discussing with the public and having that discussion, I'm really happy they helped you both doing more. Do you think it's because you've tried to do it and you liked it, or because it just like you had this little sparkle and you just had to do it once to then realize you actually liked it?
I would say a bit of both. Because I hadn't really thought about it before. Like I said, I didn't really think there was much of an audience for it. And once I started, I was like, well, you know what, I'm relating to people. And because I work in marine conservation, it is it is a very like natural science field, but there is, this political aspect to it as well. And so engaging with the public, engaging with policymakers, all that is part of, there's no point in doing the science if the measures put in place to carry it out aren't there. So, it's helped me professionally as well, to be able to learn how to, I guess, demystify marine conservation.
And you, Stefan?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think Pint of Science taps into and stimulates, academics' understanding of the importance of public engagement. We're not reinventing the wheel, but I think Pint of Science really just gives us a perfect platform. And maybe it's a little bit specific to the UK. I don't know, but pubs in the UK are it's like a collective shared living room. So
it's home.
Running it in a pub, I think, is a stroke of genius on both sides, presenters and audience, because like you say, even if we're all just on bread and water, the level of relaxation means that people can really have a dialogue without all the complications of status and nerves and all the other stuff getting in the way. So it really is an open conversation in everyone's front room, which is great.
Yeah, I think actually, as I was listening to Stephen talk, I thought about all the other speakers who had, who presented last year with me, and I realized that scientists aren't as dry as people might think that they are, because that tends to be very strict, very because last year It was a lot of fun. It was funny, like, because people were making jokes about their presentations. They were engaging with the public, kind of like playing off their the energy, and there was a lot of laughing happening. And I don't think that that's exactly what maybe the public was thinking at first. The fact that everybody was cracking jokes, I think that really helps kind of, make scientists seem like real people, quote unquote, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that part of it, was to be able to kind of, like you say, let loose, but also not be afraid to crack jokes. Like, my entire title was based on, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
And I had Freddie Mercury up there, which you probably wouldn't want to do at a conference, depending on the conference. But yeah, so you could kind of get away with finding out your fun side.
Yeah, I think scientists have a really bad reputation in the pop culture. If you look at movies, if you look at series, it's always the weird guy with glasses that speak in a really weird language. And I think it's really what I love about Pint of Science is that we're really organizing a meeting between the scientists and the public for them to meet actual scientists and have a real idea of what a scientist is. And actually, there is no proper idea of what a scientist is because every scientist is different. And it's nice to see the diversity as well, not just always the same people. See a diversity of people, diversity of voices and interests. And I think I actually really love that about Pint of Science.
Yeah, and I would say as well, I think you're absolutely right. It's for the public to meet scientists and researchers, and it's science communication. But at least in my experience, it was a really democratic experience.
Yes.
It wasn't a monologue, scientist to public. It was a real dialogue. And goodness, I mean, we're all thinking about public engagement, but the Pint of Science really makes it a two-way engagement because, as Constance was saying, people coming up and maybe after the presentation, but asking really good questions and maybe even making us reflect a bit on our work and having an input. So I think it really is a democratic dialogue between public and presenters that is it's fantastic. Long may it continue.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a feedback we hear from speakers often is that they didn't think that they would get something from it, but then they realized that first having to step back from their project and see the big picture, it really helps. And then they said as well that sometimes the questions from the public and the dialogue with the public was actually helping them see their project in a different angle. And often we have speakers that say, actually now I've seen my project in a slightly different way, and I didn't think that it could come from a lay audience, someone that doesn't know, they understand, but they don't know anything about the project. They asked me questions that made me question my project in a way that I would never have imagined. So this is always amazing when we hear that, because the idea really for Pint of Science is not just informing the public, it's really having an open forum where they can meet scientists, but also scientists can discuss the science, can discuss project, can discuss really a lot of things and get inspired from that as well, and go back to the lab and work on that and maybe come back next year or start organizing or whatever they want to do. But having a two-way interaction is really important for us. So thank you for highlighting that. We're arriving to the real end of this podcast, so I have to thank you both. I think you have events, both of you, you're participating in events, so maybe you want to give details. So Constance, yes.
So like I said, I won't unfortunately be able to make it because I won't be in England at the time. But King's College London is presenting another installment of Pint of Science this year. So we've got two. The geography department doing Planet Earth, and so they'll be talking about climate change, field work, and people in nature, and that's at the Devereux pub off the Strand in near King's College London. And the Department of Political Economy, Languages, Literatures and Cultures, they'll be doing one called Our Society at Loading Bar, Stoke Newington, and those will be running from I think it's 7 to 9. I think they're all 7 to 9. Yeah, 22nd to 24th of May. So those will be in London.
Thank you. And you, Stephen?
Well, I'm both a wonderful and a terrible ambassador for the Pint of Science events in Guildford. Wonderful because you've just got to go along. There's a Pint of Science event in every single pub in Guildford towards the end of May. But I'd have to ask you to check the Pint of Science website for details.
Exactly.
I know I'm doing the emceeing at event on the 23rd. And that is like a medical humanities focused event. So if that's your cup of tea, come along to that one. But have a look at the website.
But yeah, anyway, wherever you are in the UK, you can check on the website pint-of-science.co.uk. Pint of Science is running from the 22nd to the 24th of May. And then you have Creative Reactions, which is the art and science part of Pint of Science that might start a bit before and finish a bit after. But anyway, check on the pint-of-science.co.uk website. And if you're listening to that podcast from anywhere else in the world, you have the pint-of-science.com website, where you have the 26 participating countries that will do Pint of Science at the same time as UK. So do check there. You have all the individual websites and all the individual events. And we have over 400 cities this year in the Pints world. So we're hoping you will be in one. And thank you for listening. And thank you, Stephen. And thank you, Constance, for this amazing podcast and everything you shared with us.
Thank you so
much. Thanks to you, Elodie.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.